A good midday Thursday, everyone. Roger Hill with the VELCO Weather Hazards Outlook. Seeing some colder air up to the north, we have this trough of lower pressure and really supplying almost really north of the U.S.-Canadian border some colder than normal temperatures. Meanwhile, to the south, it's been warmer than normal temperatures. Taking a look at that, you can see that temperatures are basically in the 60s. This weather system is pushing on through. It's pretty minuscule up in our track, if you will. Further off to the south, there could be some severe weather, but overall, this is relatively weak. This is one of the last of a series of systems that moved along the west coast and gave California some real issues there with extreme winter weather and flooding. This is now weakened considerably as it's run into an area of higher pressure. The northern branch of the jet stream is still interacting with the subtropical branch, and it's a little bit confusing. Best way to cover this would be looking at the weather modeling, but before I do that, you can see just how it's cold enough aloft to see a little bit of snow. So we have the European on the left-hand side and the GFS deterministic on the right-hand side, both of these deterministic models. You can see a little bit of snow in the northern regions, just getting into the vicinity of the Champlain Valley. This is valid 1 o'clock this afternoon. And you can see the progression here, a little bit of wet snow mixed with rain to the valley floors. It's one of these hard to determine elevation-based type minutia of snowfall, so it's not really very important. The thing to note here, this is valid about 7 o'clock in the morning during the morning hours tomorrow, Friday. So there'll be a little bit of a coating generally along and east of the Green Mountains for affecting travel. This then pushes on out. We start to see an improvement, a little bit of a ridge of higher pressure here, but we have this Arctic front that's going to be pushing in tomorrow night. This means business. It's really going to unload not a whole lot in the way of precipitation, but it could produce a few squalls and snow squalls during the overnight period on Friday night into Saturday morning. And so that then pushes on out, a little bit of a gusty wind. It looks like that's going to be well below thresholds, but it will be driving that cold front, that Arctic front, further to the south and east. And then eventually this area of higher pressure is going to build in. And so things abate during the morning hours on Saturday. Once we head past daybreak or so, just a couple leftover stray flurries in the mountains. And then this area of higher pressure will build back in. Should bring us clear but cold weather Saturday, the rest of Saturday into Saturday night. A real cold night. And then on Sunday, we'll see the ridge of higher pressure still in controlling our weather. It looks like in the morning hours before the next weather system kind of skirts right up to our neck of the woods. This would be for Sunday night. So kind of quick, changeable kind of weather working on through, but none of it really being too hazardous and certainly no impacts for utilities. Now, as we get into basically another ridge of higher pressure kind of associated with what's off the western Atlantic will begin to ridge in. And so the consequences are that we see some dry weather. And dry weather will be basically the rest of Monday into Tuesday. And beyond that, then we have a setup here for rain. Trough of lower pressure to the west, a ridge of higher pressure to the east. That's opening the door for the subtropical moisture coming in out of the Gulf of Mexico. And so consequently, this is going to be beyond the period, but we're going to start to get into what could be some record temperatures with a lot of warmth and also a little bit of a southerly wind. But the main thing here is that we're going to see temperatures make a run into the 50s for the middle part and end of next week. And then beyond that, it looks like we could see conditions even get a little bit breezier. And this is a pretty good setup here. It's hard to say what this is going to end up to do, but some colder air will be driven on the backside of that system, maybe toward the following weekend. That's a long ways out, however. Looking at the 3-hourly QPF centered on the Montpelier grid of the GFS ensemble. And you can see that the main action here is this little minutia precipitation. Again, a dry period and a little bit of minutia precipitation, then followed by another dry period. Overall, this matches up fairly decent with the European model. Total QPF, we're talking 0.2 of an inch total, so nothing major there. In terms of precipitation type, it's going to be kind of back and forth. So you can see this starts out as a little bit of a mix, goes over to some rain. But also, wet snow is going to accumulate in the higher terrain, dries out, and then similar kind of conditions as we're into that sort of marginal temperature profile once we head into especially next week. This is our Saturday Arctic air blast. It's lowering those temperatures aloft. This is the 850 hectopascal layer, and what you're seeing here is a 0 degree isotherm, or 32 degrees Fahrenheit, and that 0 degrees Celsius temperature. Anything above that is generally rain, anything below that is generally snow. We're staying wet snow until we get up here, and this is a pretty good warming event that's going to be taking place for the early to mid part of next week. Total precipitation for our neck of the woods over the next 7 days by the Weather Prediction Center indicated somewhere around a ½ an inch total here. You can see that a little heavier amounts up to the north and west of our region, and also to the south and east, with a couple different bands of precip. Temperature anomalies at 2 meters, roughly where all of the temperatures are taken. We're looking at, again, right along the eastern seaboard, some colder than normal anomalies that are kind of translating out, and then much above normal temperatures off to the west of our region. That's going to be the name of the game here. So as that pushes on in, we're starting out near neutral. This is the next 5 days of high temperatures from meteorological output statistics that are weighted. You can see the big warm up here happening in the east of the Rockies, and about 3 days later it looks like this. That warm up then expands into all of the northeast, adjacent southeastern Canada. Last but not least, I also want to show you here, this is the air temperatures as plotted right now, and you can see these number of years. This is our sort of standard deviations, and you can see that we're actually above the standard deviation by a considerable amount. Looking at, this is for the world, so looking at the northern hemisphere, that's what it would look like. And then kind of shifting to the southern hemisphere, you're seeing that temperatures are also above normal. For the Arctic specifically, not too far off from normals currently right now. And then for the Antarctic, we're pretty close to normal at this point. Now, interestingly, for the tropics, we're well above normal. This is what's driving a lot of the warming right now. It's the tropics. And at noontime, this is our current temperatures, and you can see that we've warmed up fairly nicely in a lot of places. Not everywhere. A pocket of cold air hanging out near Springfield. All of the temperatures should be headed for basically somewhere around 40 to 45 later on today. That's it from here. Roger Hill, Wuthering Heights. Thanks for watching.